Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back with another recording of Hearthstone. Today is Wednesday, May 16th. We're past the midway point for the month and we're starting really low, really late is what I meant to say there. That means not much. I guess I'm gonna have to win 3 Tavern Brawls. We'll play with mage cards and then I need to win 3 more victories in any mode. I may have played 1 or 2 games. Well, I didn't really play any games. After last stream, I just kind of tried to cheat and see if I could frustrate people into giving up and conceding. So, yeah, I should be able to get all of these done in a relatively quick process. So if I'm gonna make a mage thing, would it be this and this? See, these Tavern Brawls where you pick 2 cards are not really the way I'd like it to be. I'd like it to be 3, maybe 4 cards. 4 cards seems about right, because if you're playing as the first person on a turn, then you'd get 3 out of the 4 cards at most. And if you're playing as the second turn player, then you're going to get 4 out of the 4 cards at most. Let's see. We've got tons of games to talk about. Here's a game called Battle of Hearth, which it is a MS Paint attempt, I believe, at making a Hearthstone ripoff. I don't even know what they're doing here. It's from a developer who's made nothing else. It's 40% off for $2.39. Like, nobody's gonna be fooled by this at all. Let's see. It says it's multiplayer, but I'm not sure I fully believe that. Straight one of those out. It has 1 negative and 1 positive, and neither one of them are in English. Just really ridiculous. Well, I guess there's no reason to waste time on talking about it, though. We've got so much to cover, there's no point in talking about a terrible MS Paint ripoff of a card game. The next game we have on Steam is called Zombie Teacher, which arguably might have MS Paint graphics, but in this instance, I wouldn't say it's MS Paint, it's more marker graphics, something that you would expect from a 3rd-year high school artist. There's actual skill in this. However, it's a weird mix, certainly, too, of what I'm seeing.
Job's done.
Runs out on me.
Like, this feels like it's supposed to be an Earthworm Jim kind of reference of a game. It says it's an indie game. Retro platformer that's a tribute to games of yesteryear. Like, I really don't think new game developers should be making tributes to classic games, because frankly you're just not going to do a good job with it, and it's not going to be a good tribute. It's going to be a pathetic clone. Let's see. Your task is help the villain become the star of his own video game. All you must do is collect 66 vintage arcades from across the globe. Sounds simple enough. It's described as a mix between Super Mario Bros. 3, Earthworm Jim, and WarioWare. Okay, so when you get to the arcade games, I think you probably are playing some kind of mini game, which might explain why so much of this game does seem like it's slightly different. But this frankly is just a mess of different ideas, I would say. And this is the only game from this developer, Edgy Games. And it's called Zombie Teacher for no reason. I'm just moving on. That's really all I can say is just moving on. There's nothing there. Nothing there to really say. Nothing really more that can be taken from that. Definitely not gonna wishlist that game. Arguably, I would wishlist that game if it looked good, but it doesn't. And that was a major deciding factor. However, moving on, PC Gamer has an article, the Bulletstorm studio People Can Fly, that most recently partnered with Gearbox's publishing to re-release a HD version of their Bulletstorm game, but didn't give a free upgrade or any kind of discount to people who had already owned Bulletstorm, so that they really screwed out any new people, well, any loyal, not new people, but loyal fans of the game. And Bulletstorm's not really a great game in the first place, so you have to also take that for what it is. They are now working with Square Enix on a new AAA shooter, so I suppose it's not really much of a diversion or surprising action that they would be working with Square Enix as kind of a third-party middleman developer on a first-person shooter, while also trying to make some money for themselves by publishing the thing that I assume they owned outright. You might take the assumption that because Bulletstorm was working with Gearbox, maybe they were also trying to get a contract, or maybe secretly did have a contract with Gearbox to help them develop like Borderlands 3. That certainly was something that I kind of speculated about and wondered. It could also be that they were trying to maybe get some funding from Gearbox to make a new game, and they didn't get enough of an offer from Gearbox, so they went with Square Enix to be the publisher. People Can Fly recently opened 2 new studios to support the project. People Can Fly also made Painkiller, but I seriously doubt they're coming back and making a new Painkiller ever. And Gears of War Judgment, which you kind of know it's not a Gears of War game unless Cliff Brzezinski doesn't have any control over Gears of War, which I don't think he does, but I think Microsoft does, and so that still wouldn't make enough sense. And they say it's a new AAA shooter in partnership with Square Enix, which I guess you wouldn't say Deus Ex is a AAA shooter, nor would you want Deus Ex to be a AAA shooter, particularly in the form of Bulletstorm. That's just too fast and too crazy. You could maybe do a spin-off or two of Deus Ex and have somebody in that universe with augmentations that could run and shoot really fast, and that would make sense, but it shouldn't be a main game, because the main Deus Ex games are more of these RPG detective stories, investigatory stories, with hacking and stuff like that. It says, quote, "We decided in 2017 to open a new studio in Newcastle, UK, to attract not only local talent, but also attract the best developers in the UK. We wanted to grow to 20-30 developers within the 12 to 18 months. And then when it says, when CL Games, I don't know who CL Games is, decided to restructure its operations, we immediately decided to open a new studio in Rzeszów to allow those great developers to keep working together as a team."
I wonder.
So, Rzeszów, I assume, is somewhere in Europe, maybe Poland, Netherlands. I could basically speculate on any European Eastern Bloc country. I need to look here. Let's search Square Enix, and this may be a totally new publishing development. So looking at the list of games that Square Enix has made doesn't inherently guarantee that it's going to tell me what this new first-person shooter could be. Square Enix, it is worth remembering though that Square Enix is a Japanese company, so the vast majority of their games are Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy games. A Final Fantasy first-person shooter doesn't seem realistic, but it could be.
The victory is yours.
Honestly, it would be a good idea if they did have like a Final Fantasy first-person shooter and tried to bring more people into it. Kingdom Hearts 3 certainly isn't going to be a first-person shooter. Let's see, all I need to do now is play 8 more cards. What happens when I have done all of the daily quests in Hearthstone and there's still a ton of news to talk about? I guess we'll just be playing ranked play. Let's see. Valkyrie profile, doesn't seem like you'd do a first person shooter on that. The World Ends With You. It's not going to be a Crisis Core, maybe. Call of Duty Modern Warfare. So it could be that they've got some Call of Duty-esque type game that people can play. Although, again, I'm not sure. I feel like you're probably wasting the talents of people can play if you're just making a Call of Duty game, because when you see what Bulletstorm was, that was a very, very fast-paced, very specific in how you're playing with special abilities first-person shooter and running and sliding. It would have to be some kind of future warfare Call of Duty game, and that the last one they did of that didn't sell. Quantum of Solace, I guess, if they somehow got the James Bond license back. A lot of Full Metal Alchemist and anime-esque games from Square Enix.
Jaina versus Jaina.
You asked for
Nier
it.
Automata.
It is on.
I guess they published, no, not Nier Automata, but just Nier, the original game. I guess Square Enix published that. So that'd be really weird if they had them doing something like Nier as a first-person shooter or something like Bulletstorm, but then they said in this instance it's going to be very Japanese in its style. They do have Kane and Lynch, so you could do a first-person shooter for a new Kane and Lynch game. That would be interesting. They do have Lara Croft, so first-person shooter of Lara Croft games seems like that would be a bad decision, but I wouldn't put it past Square Enix. Of course, they have Dead Island, which again you would be drastically changing it. Call of Duty, of course.
Someday I'll be just like you.
Deus Ex, of course. Quantum Conundrum, and I believe that would work. Sleeping Dogs, maybe, but I doubt it. There's a long list here of games, and most of them are RPG games of some sort. Thief, you're not going to make a first-person shooter Thief game. That would inherently be insulting to the original. Transformers, I don't know if they've got the Transformers license. Spider-Man, no, you're not going to do a first-person shooter Spider-Man, or even a Deadpool game or anything like that. You're not going to do Life is Strange as a first-person shooter.
It's time for a little blow.
Just Cause 3, they have that, so maybe that. Hitman first-person shooter, no. Square Enix doesn't have Hitman anymore. Saga Scarlet Grace, no, that's definitely not it. They did publish Nier Automata, so. But again, turning that into a full-on first-person shooter wouldn't make sense. Square Enix published a lot of games.
We have many secrets.
So, and the way Wikipedia lists it, there's no real easy way to separate it out and see just the games that they published versus games that they developed. Battalion 1944? It could be a new Battalion game. That would make sense. Let's see, Battalion 1944 is supposed to be coming out in 2019 from Bulkhead Interactive, so that might be it that they're working on. Unless they're making the Avengers project, which has not been announced. It's Crystal Dynamics and Eidos Montreal is working on that. Here at the bottom they have AAA title for Microsoft Windows to be announced from People Control. So there's really no indication whatsoever what it could be. I have no clue. I would almost suspect it's just a Bulletstorm 2. We've got somebody with an extremely long name on the chat saying hi. Hi. Extremely long name.
We must cleanse the Sunwell.
I'm surprised I got anybody on the chat, frankly, as late as I started. Next article we have Leighton Mysteries Journal, Catrelli and the Millionaire's Conspiracy has been announced for the Switch. So this is the Lady Leighton series. Like, I'm not sure if Lady Leighton is a prequel series for Professor Layton or a sequel series, but the Professor Layton series was fun, and then they moved over to what I'm calling the Lady Leighton series, and others have called it that. As simplistic little mobile puzzle games. This one's coming out August 9th in Japan. The Switch version of this game was previously released for the 3DS and smartphones, missing DX at the end. It lets players switch between both touch and pen and controls inputs. The Leighton series I don't think has particularly come out to the west very much. There's a few of them, but not as many as I think have come out elsewhere. And so there's room for a latent bundle. Okami HD for the Switch launches August 9th in Japan, according to Gematsu. These are nice, simple articles that I can talk about and just move on. This game on Steam called Asimov's Laws. This is an early access action-adventure RPG indie game. Is it in English? It's in English and simplified Chinese. And
You asked for it.
I'm not sure yet. I'm looking at it, and it looks like it would be an MMO game, but it's actually a single player game. And there's a lot of like energy based attacks the character is doing. She's like swinging her fist like she's doing a right hook, and then energy waves are coming out and attacking some monsters, and it seems like you fight groups of monsters that look exactly the same in different, but when you go to a different area you get a different group of monsters. The background looks pretty poorly animated, I would say. It's just doesn't really have any style to it. Looks simplistic. You're playing as this character with a ponytail and wearing what I would describe as a bikini of some sort of outfit, typical of what you see in cheap, low effort games. Apparently, you augment yourself. The main problem here is every single thing I'm seeing is just not to a level of being visually appealing. A lot of dark screenshots, and the last two screenshots are bright, but they don't really show you anything. Every screenshot is in Chinese. It says it's early access, 10% off for $8.99, and the first review that I have says, couldn't change the text to English, gameplay is terrible, just a bunch of not fun assets tossed together, stay away. I'm surprised there are any reviews in English. Actually, it's the only user review in any language. We're still very much having the problem of very obviously Chinese developers. Like, when you make a game that only supports English and simplified Chinese, it's probably a Chinese developer. I guess that may be a little bit of an unfair assumption. It could be that there are Taiwanese or Korean developers, but then why wouldn't you make the game in your own language? Like, why, if it was a Korean developer, why wouldn't it also be Korean and then simplified English and then simplified Chinese and English? Yeah, so it kind of obviously has to be Chinese developer companies that do these low quality games. I can't applaud them that they seem to typically want to do 3D games. You don't get the MS Paint joke meme games coming out of Chinese developers, but they really just look like knockoff games, and there's far too many of them still coming on Steam, and it doesn't take a considerable amount of time to look at them and say, this just does not look like it's good enough. And I'm perfectly fine with Steam telling some publishers, look, the trailers and screenshots you've put out don't look good enough. We personally don't think they're going to sell. Therefore, we're not going to put them on our digital storefront. Come back to us with better screenshots and a better game. or at least a better representation of your game, if you're going to try and make the argument that, oh, the screenshots are bad but the game is actually good. That shouldn't be allowed either. Like, there could be amazingly great games on Steam with bad screenshots that I think Steam should still go back to them and say, we want you to redo this, we want you to make your game more appealing. I guarantee you, in grocery stores, there are grocery store chains that are telling developers of laundry soap and such that we want you to change your labeling and make it look more visually appealing. Otherwise, we wouldn't have brightly colored laundry soap at all. It would just be boring, bland packaging. Well, I don't know, maybe the laundry soap companies thought that they'd get more sales by making it bright and colorful, although that really backfired for them. Moving on, PC Gamer has an article called "Not Tonight Imagines a Drudge-Filled Brexit Dystopia, Gig Economy Blues." I guess "Not Tonight" is the idea of people every day lining up and begging for jobs, and it's based on Britain's vote to leave the European Union. If I can be critical as the United Statesian, I would say the United States in particular failed to really come in and strengthen its relationship with Britain when they voted to leave the European Union. I would also say that probably Russia and China sort of failed to do that too. Of course, we in the meanwhile were negotiating the NAFTA agreement, which turned into a mess of a negotiation, and in theory should be a great thing, but in the way it's being secretly written seems to be a horrible thing. And also NATO, the defense agreement.
Job's done.
So that's kind of my take on Brexit. As far as what this game is, Not Tonight, it's just like a pixely based game that I imagine it's just going to be depressing and political and preachy. It looks alright, but I don't see anything here that really interests me. Is PC Gamer part of the people that also own like Your Gamer? Maybe. I know PC Gamer is owned by several people.
The gates are open.
Let's see. PC Gamer is part of Future PLC, an international media group and digital publisher. Visit our corporate site. I don't think it is actually part of Your Gamer. Yeah, there's really not too much to say more. That's kind of, again, a very typical way in which PC Gamer publishes articles that are not super useful or relevant, talking about a game that nobody will play and nobody knows anything about in the first place. I've got so much news too. Covering that stuff is ridiculous. Code of Princess EX launches August 2nd in Japan, so that is really just a update. We now have a date for Code of Princess EX, which Fair enough. If it ever comes to the West, I might give it more time of day. There's a game on Steam called Fantasy Versus. It says it's an RPG action indie casual game. It looks like it's an RPG game where you have a selection of chibi small short figures. It's a real-time RPG game. Is it multiplayer? It's an online MMO, but that also allegedly has single player. So explain that one to me. How in the world can you have even a somewhat similar experience if you're if some people are playing on single player and some people are playing online on an MMO? It's 30% off for $4.89. Let's see what some of the negative reviews say. None are apparently my language. There's a lot of Japanese not recommended reviews. Considering this game has traditional Chinese, simplified Chinese, German, says it has a lot of everybody. What I would suspect is the problem with this game, if there is a problem with this game, which it's hard to tell if there actually is that this seems like it is a very repetitive game where you're just running around a very generic open world, running into a circle which is an area of conflict and fighting randomly spawning monsters, and then probably not doing too much besides that. I'm not seeing any shops. Let's go over to the Americas account now. Like, we're getting all the daily quests done early. This has an all-time peak of 279. It is from the developer of a game I just saw that I wanted to play called Forward to the Sky, that's rated very positively. So I just recently wishlisted that game. And their other game called Panty Party, that was the one where you played as a pair of panties shooting other panties that were possessed. As like really weird. So this publisher is all over the map. I guess I have to do the Tavern Brawl. Remember to do that. I almost forgot. I literally almost forgot. Let's see. Can we do Druid? Gain 2 mana crystals. Gain an empty mana crystal. And then deal 1 damage, summon the Jade Druid. Do we have that one? Should have it, and this is my main account. Can't read these cards, that's the problem. I'll just type in Jade, that'll work. Results found on the wild set. Oh, I can only play standard. That explains it. Alright, well. What else do we want to do? Swipe. Spend all your mana. There you go. We'll do that. See how that works. That's not gonna work at all. I guarantee it's not gonna work. Probably do want to wishlist Panty Party just as a silly game. And they also have Fantasy Versus, which is also very positive at 88% of.
Lunara versus Uther.
So I don't know if I'm really willing to
The forest fights back.
wishlist Fantasy Versus because it looks like it's an MMO. But I do want to do Forward to the Sky and Panty Party. So every game this developer, Animu Games, ANIMU, every one of those that they've done has caught my attention and gotten positive reviews. It's just I need to, of course, really rush through it. PC Gamer has Cliff Bazinski shares arts and ideas from the games he hoped to make at Boss Key, which arguably this is a full-on admission now that he's getting out of the video game industry forever. There certainly was some criticism I felt like I was saying and other people have said about how he was literally just talking about him and none of the employees that he's effectively laying off by shutting down that company. He didn't seem like he really cared too much. He's yet to say, hey, why don't you, if you're hiring, here's a great group of people that I'd recommend or anything. Instead, he's talking about game ideas that he had that are just general ideas that by putting out in public he's admitting he's never going to make because somebody else is going to steal them. Most of his ideas, frankly, are also, for the most part, I don't know if I really want to say childish, but I would say they're kind of just childish. They're that Gears of War, bro code-esque way of thinking, and there's no gameplay mechanics based on what he's talking about. He's talking about art, interesting looking art things, like he paid some concept artist or he drew it himself, and I don't think Cliff Blazinski can really draw it himself, to do cartoony animal creatures like Looney Tunes, samurai creatures, dragons. That's what like a teenager, pre-teenager would be obsessed about. It's like cartoons, dragons, samurais. Nothing wrong with any of those, but there's no amazing idea or concept of how that gameplay is going to work or evolve into some interesting gameplay mechanic or different types of games. And when you compare it to what Lawbreakers was and what Radical Heights was, like, those were very generic games that I would have gambled on not blowing the video game world out of the water, because they're not special. It's not Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice. It's not something along that line where it was something you'd kind of never seen before. Let's see. TechRaptor has a article, Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey Redux review. Let's do the space warp again. I don't know if this is a new game or if this is just TechRaptor talking about an old game. This looks like a really old game. And if TechRaptor is going to start covering retro games, was played on the Nintendo 3DS. They gave it a 7.5, very good. So maybe that game just came out on the 3DS, maybe not. Otherwise, I guess I kind of don't know what's going on.
Job's done.
Rock Paper Shotgun says Phoenix Point delayed until summer of next year. We're starting to see games getting delayed. We've also gotten almost direct confirmation from Randy Pitchford that Borderlands 3 is not coming out and going to be shown at E3. I don't know if this is a direct response to Rage 2 being announced or not. Personally, I feel like it was sort of obvious that Borderlands 3 is not as far along in development as it probably should be. Let's see.
This'll be good.
So I'll continue to play this. And then the turn. There's also arguments, or not arguments, speculation that since the creators of the Rage 2, the people working on Rage 2, are the people who made the recent Mad Max game, which this now gives me a very good reason to play the Mad Max game, but I also then have to consider, do I want to play Mad Max, which is a much more recent game, or do I want to play Rage 1, which would be the storyline predecessor to Rage 2. I guess also I need to figure out when Rage 2 is actually coming out, because if it's coming out extremely quickly, it very possibly doesn't matter at all. So the speculation is that the director of the Mad Max movie and owner of the license, somewhat, I guess, is in a lawsuit with the publisher, Fox, I think. Take everything I'm saying here with a grain of salt. They're in this lawsuit, and Fox canceled all future Mad Max projects, and the director-writer of Mad Max is old enough that he's probably not going to be young enough and healthy enough to make another movie by the time this lawsuit is done. So it's possible that the creators of the Mad Max game were working on a Mad Max 2 game, and then either Fox or WB canceled the video game in the same way that they would have canceled all the projects because of this lawsuit, and just kind of out of spite. Therefore, that would have left the developers of the game with a lot of assets that look like Mad Max, but then Rage kind of looks like Mad Max, so you wouldn't be changing as much as you would have to transfer that over to a different game. So it very possibly is that Rage 2 actually was going to be a Mad Max game, which would make a lot more sense. So that's the speculation. It was on the Giant Bomb, basically by a fan of Giant Bomb, but it is a good theory. In a weird way, I don't know what we're gonna do here. Like, how can I cheat here? And we still need to get these done, so I guess there's still more work to be done. But I'm thinking of trying to kind of limit my stream and end it now, but there's so much more to do, and on top of that, there's like, let's trade this out. That's good. Win 3 games with the Druid or Hunter. Play minions that cost 5 or more. I've got so much news to cover. I've got so much other, so much to do, and we've gone 45 minutes. So what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna end this recording and then take a break, and then we'll come back and do another recording and just leave it streaming as we go, because that works for YouTube. It's so stupid that that works, but leaving it streaming even when you're not doing anything is somehow a valid entertainment option. That's it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me even further, gift me a game or gift me a Steam gift card on, so we can save up for the summer sale. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.